Welcome to episode 9 of the Heartbeats of Adapted PE podcast. We're so excited that you are joining us today. I'm Jen Hebink, your host. I'm a full-time adapted PE teacher 40 minutes west of Minneapolis. The Heartbeats of Adapted PE podcast is a podcast where we aim to connect, inspire, and amplify adapted PE teacher voices and those who support all students. We want to celebrate the heart, which is the storytelling, and the beat, celebrating the daily rhythms of our routine in our essential field. The Heartbeats of Adapted PE podcast will be brought to you by our sponsor, Fit and Fun Playscapes. Their mission, much like ours, is to support all students in movement. So please check them out, and you can find them on X. I want to start by highlighting that December 3rd is our International Persons with a Disability Day, and we want to acknowledge the rights and well-being of people with disabilities. And also understanding that if we look into our past, in our American history, the stories of individuals with disabilities was not what it looks like right now. There have been many individuals with disabilities who have fought and fought and fought for the rights of many to just have basic human rights. And many look to our laws and policies in America wishing they had what we have here in America. There is a lot of work and advocacy to do, but today I have a guest who has to advocate for herself and has had to for her whole life. And now she advocates for her own students. She is an individual with a disability who gets to teach all students. Her name is Heather Burde, and she is the Shape America for 2025 Middle School PE Teacher of the Year. So we are going to bring Heather on. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Hello, friends.
Yes.
So welcome to the podcast. I have been waiting and waiting to have you on because you have such an inspirational story. We're going to be tapping into kind of the heart behind your story and the beat behind what you do daily and how you live with a disability. And so what I want to start with is kind of just jumping into what your journey was like growing up with a disability and how did it shape your relationship with movement and physical education? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I'm the only known case in the world of right hemiparesis, which is I am literally diagnosed with just a symptom because it has the symptoms of a stroke without having a stroke. And so basically, I have to deal with a weaker right side, arms, and a leg as well. And it's a little bit of a shorter right leg and so on and so forth. But I've always been able to figure out a way. I've been growing up with a family and a lifestyle that said life isn't going to be easy for you. You have to figure out a way. There's always a way. You can do anything and everything if you put your heart and your mind to it, but you have to have both heart and mind. And that's where I started because I have to admit, I had an elementary experience in physical education that was really amazing. Like, for instance, on the boys basketball team, that's right, I played on the boys basketball team because we had two boys.
Wow.
Yeah. I was a point guard with one good hand, a point guard. And why is that, should we ask? Well, my coach was like, well, she's the only one that can dribble to her left with being a good left-handed dribbler. And so guess what? I started the offense on the left side in elementary school. That's right. I was an elementary champion on the boys basketball team as a point guard. Awesome. But then I went through high school and I had a very different story when it came to physical education. I had teachers and coaches were like, Heather, you're different. You just go over there. I had times where I was told, can I just be all-time goalie? I was like, sure. I was like, can't I try? You could not believe the amount of times that I had to actually start saying something like, why? I can do this. I can do hard things. That's what resilience is all about. And that's what my family raised me to be, resilient. And nothing in movement has ever been easy. And it's been one of the most important things that I could ever teach my kids as a mother and as a teacher. And so I guess I've always liked to do things the hard way. And
Yeah.
I just wanted, for some reason, I think I got ticked off enough that so many people said I couldn't do movement that I
That
was going to teach
off.
movement.
Yeah. Hey, so let's take a second because oh gosh. So that really like as a PE teacher, like I'm so glad you got to have that elementary experience where they just
Yeah.
like included you in everything. But like I could totally see how growing up in the age that we did about how like so you basically feel like they kind of just shooed you off to the side and was like, well, you're here.
Yeah. It was one of the biggest things that, like I really had to dig deep and really keep fighting for. I had a basketball coach that had to come to me and say, "Hey, do you want to try out for basketball or not?" And he was so honest with me and so real with me, Mr. Brown. He said, "This isn't going to be easy, and I'm not going to have a whole lot of playing time for you. But if you really want to learn how to coach, if that's your goal, then you're going to learn basketball all the way through." I got on to varsity experiences in ninth grade. And
Oh wow.
yeah, with one good side. I was a practice player for that guy for
Mhm.
literally 3 years. And it was the greatest experience of my life because even as a practice player, I counted.
Yeah.
So these are like the contrasting feelings that I had. I had coaches that didn't think I was important, and I had other coaches that truly believed. And just to say, hey, you never know. Let's see what you can do. And
Yeah.
that's literally what my life has been all about.
And speaking of, let's see what you can do. I have, for those of you listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I have Heather's headshots up here on my slides, and they're very interesting. So, Heather, I'm assuming that one of these headshots is one that you give like when you go like present at conferences, right?
Yep.
The other two, just to give you a little description, one is Heather as in full fire protection.
Yep.
And then the other one, she has like her coat of her fire protection gear off, but the house behind her is burning down. And if you've ever
Literally.
seen the meme where it's like the dumpster fire and it's like everything is fine, everything's
Good.
fine, it's good. Like that's kind of the vibe that it gives. She's giving a big smile on all three of those. But Heather, you always talk about how like everybody can do something. How does that play into like I think, are you volunteering with the fire department?
Yeah, we have a volunteer fire department, and my father was a firefighter as well. And I went to my firefighting team and I said, I'd like to do what my dad did. And they also said, let's see what you can do. I have been on the fire department since I graduated in 2003. And believe it or not, I was not able to take the firefighter test, although I have been a pump girl for nearly 15 years. As a pump girl, what I do is I get the water to all of my firefighting team so that I have one firefighter less that can actually go into the fire instead of me. And so I love my job as a pump girl and a gopher girl. Like if there's anything they need, I go get. And then also I'm the safety officer for my department. And again, I'm disabled and I'm a firefighter, a real firefighter. 5 years ago was the first time I was able to, through my old chief, say, why don't you just see what she can do? You never know. And I was able to pass the firefighter one test as a disabled person. I'm the only known one in the state of Minnesota
Oh,
because I like
wow,
a
Heather, that
challenge.
is so impressive. Well, and here's the thing, like, the next question I want to ask you is what are some of the biggest misconceptions or assumptions people still make about individuals with disabilities, especially related to physical ability?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that people think that they're helping them when they coddle them and say, "Oh, this is okay. You don't have to do this. It's all right."
Mhm.
And when you have to find a way, you have to find a way to see how they can connect and that they count and they have a purpose. Every
Yep.
kid deserves a purpose, not something that says, "Oh, you're just special." The more we give them disabilities, the less we're teaching them. You're
We're
my
almost disabling them more when we look at what
Yes,
they can't do, right?
yes,
Yeah.
my another one that my grandpa told me is you're only disabled if you wanna be.
Yeah. Mhm.
You just have to find a way to make it work for you.
An interesting perception. perception and
It
perspective.
is.
I
It is.
appreciate
It's powerful to me. And there's a lot of people in this world that are very quote unquote normal
Mhm.
that are disabled too because they choose to be.
Hmm. Wow. That really, I mean, for people, because we have a lot of like undergrad students that listen, right?
Mhm.
So for our friends that have had less experience with that, with just encountering people with different abilities, right?
Mhm.
It's good for us to kind of take in and understand that we have to look at what people can do, right? We always
Yes.
say find a way, right? Find a way
Yes.
to connect, find a way. Uh,
Mhm.
so what aspects of living with a disability and being a teacher, right? Let's tie it
Yes.
into being a teacher, because right now you're
Mhm.
teaching middle school PE, but also you're teaching adapted PE, right? Like,
Yes, I am a first year DAPE teacher, which is amazing. I've got my variants and I'm going through Sherry Holloway at BSU right now to get my DAPE license. And I can't say thank you enough to them. It is amazing to me uh, what it's like to teach those with disabilities and doing it the right way so that I feel like I'm actually doing my job and making sure that everyone has that purpose. So that's a big one. Okay, remind me again of the question. Oh,
yeah.
for funny.
So the question is, what aspects of living with a disability and being a teacher
Yeah.
do you wish people understood more?
Gosh, the funny thing is I laugh about the word adaptive or adapted because
Mhm.
one of the things that I think that makes us powerful educators is the fact that aren't we supposed to adapt all the time? Aren't we supposed to be able to reach everybody?
Yeah.
And the things that I've talked about a lot in the curriculum that I was able to write with our next guest had the ability to write a ladder system for every student. I don't care if they're at step one, step two, step three, or step four. Are you reaching all four steps? Are you teaching all four steps? And that ladder system is absolutely imperative to be able to reach everything. And I'll just do a quick correction for you. Believe it or not, I'm at a K-12 building. And so
Okay.
I teach 50% middle school right now type of thing. And I have 1 hour a day. And then I also teach K-12. But so you can imagine, talk about the needs of your ability to think on the go, be resilient, make the decisions to make sure what are your beginners doing? What are your middle people doing? What are your advanced people doing? And gosh, and if you got an adaptive kid, oh my goodness, when I started teaching, this was really important. I had kids with paras, they would hold their adaptive
Be
kids.
like hand over hand kind of and
They
like be right
they
next
didn't
to them.
even let them participate. And I,
Yeah.
as a teacher, had no idea how to get them connected into the game. This has been a 10-year experience for me for K-12 and saying, guess what? Rural adaptive is necessary as well.
Yeah. And I know that's a big like thing for you. We're going to be talking about the advocacy pieces.
Yes.
Um when you were growing up, did you kind of have a point where you realized like, "Oh, I'm different."
The funny thing is I think it was a struggle always. I was
Mm,
always taught the correct way to say, you're only disabled if you want to be.
okay.
Find a way. There were
Yeah.
so many times that I had to know how to fail. And how many times as an educator right now that we have kids that don't have a clue how to fail and they have serious mental issues because they don't have those coping mechanisms in order to do so. And my
Yeah.
parents were phenomenal. My grandparents were phenomenal. My coaches were phenomenal at being able to say, you always knew that you were different,
Mhm.
but you always knew you were going to find a way. I mean, that's what resilience is all about, right?
Yeah. I feel like too, just even my own kids, right? I struggled with perfectionism growing up. My own oldest has perfectionism. But like realizing like failing is okay and we learn from it. And
Yes.
there's some like deep feelings that happen, number one, when we can't figure things out,
Mhm.
right? So being a problem solver and learning how to solve problems when you don't understand something or don't get it correct the right way, like, problem solving is huge, right?
Right.
So do you feel like you had people in your life that could help you like solve those problems, or you'd be like, no, you gotta kind of do it yourself? Your
There's a couple of
grandparents and
stories that
parents?
I could tell you about, obviously, but one of my favorite ones was when my grandpa taught me how to ride horse. And
I
I
think
was
you
like,
told
oh,
me this story. Okay, tell
yes.
it again.
Okay, here
Yes.
you go. I'm gonna ride. I couldn't believe it. I finally was gonna ride horse because my grandpa was gonna get this going on. And he set up the arena, and I had the most docile, most boring horse that you could ever imagine. That I swear to God, you're lucky if you took a step forward, type of thing, right? And
Mhm.
grandpa set this arena up with lots of different things that I could climb onto. And guess what? He said, go red, figure it out. I took hours and hours and hours to figure out how to get up.
Hmm.
And then after that, I climbed on the side of a fence and almost slid completely off his backside. But then what happened after that? I kicked the horse aside and I just slid right off the side. And he's just like, uh, Grandpa, I fell off. He goes, I know. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Everything is hard. Life is hard. But
Yeah.
it's the adventure and the challenge that makes us that much stronger. And again, I think this is why I was called to teach movement. And I think that
Yeah.
that's important because aren't we just a platform in order to teach these skills that are constant in everyone's lives? And it's just a matter of let's go. What do you
Yeah.
want to do? You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great story. I remember you telling me the horse story for the first time, and I was like, that grandpa is awesome. Like
It was good.
he wasn't gonna let you like take the easy road, not at
Oh
all. Nope.
no. It was
Um,
constant. And I
was
loved it.
was there a time though when you started to kind of embrace your disability as a source of strength rather than a challenge?
I think the most important thing when you ask that question is the fact that I think I embraced it as a teacher, as an
Mm,
undergrad. And there was a lot of people that said, Heather, are you really sure you can be a coach or a teacher? Or, gosh, Heather, I don't think you should do this. This is really dumb. You should do something else. And so that's when I was like, okay, how am I going to prove them wrong? Because that was pretty much my entire life beforehand. And that's when I said, okay, I've got to be different. But here's the kicker, my differences have to be my biggest strength. And that's where certain folks in my life figured out these things. And they knew that I needed to be not just okay, I needed to be great.
yeah. And soon we're going to be talking to one of those people. So Joe's going to get ready in a second. We have a second guest, but I do have two more questions for you, Heather.
Oh,
Um, so maybe it's three. When did you decide to be a PE teacher? But then also, when did you decide to be an adapted PE teacher?
good questions. Okay, number one, when did I decide to become a PE teacher? It was really crazy.
Mhm.
I was talking to Bob Kohler, who was my advisor from Concordia, and I told him, I think I can do this. I think I can teach movement. And you know what? I'm going to do this. Um, just because all my life has been about motivation, and I just wanted to motivate people. I knew I was a teacher from like
Mm.
6 years old on, but all of a
Yeah.
sudden when I went to my first like undergrad PE classes, oh my gosh, I'm a motivator. That's what I'm supposed to do in this world. And I felt like I was really truly called. Adaptive, I always felt like I always was, that was just part of the game.
Yeah.
Adaptive for me, I feel that's part of being that professional PE educator. I kind of laugh about, saying adaptive PE. I'm going, well, shoot, I think that's a whole part of the umbrella. If you get, you're a much more complete person if you are constantly doing that.
Yeah.
My first job teaching for adaptive, uh, didn't require license, and it's something that I wasn't really available to me. And so when it wasn't, when it was finally, I was like, let's go, we got to get her done. And so I was
Yeah.
super excited to be just not just okay, but great at what I do.
Yeah. And I know, like, for me, it was so fun to see you at the Mindic conference this year, and you were just like, let's go. I know I kind of had a plot twist in there too, but it was good to, like, because we only connect at conferences.
I
You're so
know.
rural. So it was really good to just hang out at camp and have a good time.
No doubt.
But I know, like, what brought you there was that you live in rural Minnesota, and how
Yes.
adapted PE is just so needed. And a lot of people just, like, they have to be told the law, right? And they have to be told and understand the law. And a lot of times, like, our administrators need to be told from other administrators that this is the law. And sometimes they don't listen to us, but sometimes they do. And so you are kind of being the lead voice, I would say, up there.
Thank you.
So I want to hear, how have you had to advocate for your students and students that need adapted PE in your district, and also kind of that rural Minnesota? And you can talk about your conference too.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so a little bit about this was the fact that I have a large portion of autistic kids, like a large, and I was like, what are we supposed to do with these kids? What are we doing with these kids? What's the physical education? What's the movement? And basically, I don't think that a lot of people, at least my old admin, even had a clue as to what we could do, and I felt like these kids were being locked away when they could so totally be part of things as long as we found a way to make it work. And instead of me just kind of like guessing, I just wanted to get my adaptive so badly in order to say, what could I make sure to do in order to make this happen? So that's why it was so important to me to get my adaptive finally. But also, another part of my advocating for this, because again, so many rural schools, they don't have the money to bring their teachers to special events for what they call around here specials, and not to mention, like, well, can't you just go outside with them? Can't you just go play on the playground? Can't you just do the simple things, right? And there's been times, I kid you not, where I've had 100 kids in my gym, 100 kids, and in a little itty bitty gym. Can't you figure out something to play? And these are the things that I just wanted to advocate for our profession, and being able to say, how can we make sure we're doing best practices and that we're not falling far behind? But when it comes to standardization and making things not just a subjective, but objective in physical education. I think that that's extremely important. So in comes the day where I'm like, you know what? Nobody in rural North Minnesota tends to get down all the way down to the cities. And so I was like, no, I want to get them in shape conference up north. And so what did I do? I kid you not. I made my own power day.
You did.
I did. I just made my own conference. Literally, I threw it up in the air and it said, here you go. And so I'm not kidding. We had physical education, we had health education, and we had adaptive stuff that came into play, where we had teachers that there were 45 teachers. 45 teachers. I don't even know if there's 45 people in the town that I live in. And awesome. So we had people from the farthest of north of Minnesota to even central Minnesota, and I think Nevis was the an area where I could not believe it. And I was just so amazed. And it was so funny because even though teachers that had been there for years, they're like, Chief, we should do this all the time. I'm going, we're gonna do it. I called the
every year.
Yes. I called the day Power Day because I got my biggest financial support through the local power company that does one grant every year, and I got it. I got it for from Wild Rice Cooperative Electric. Yes, let's go Wild Rice. And sure enough, this is my second year that I received, and now Power Day is financially taken care of so that we could give rural educators a day for themselves so they can have professional development that actually consists of physical education. And it's been the coolest thing we've ever done. And now we have Joe Deutsch being the introductory person. We have Leah Wheeling We have now Gophers coming. We have Fobo coming.
Awesome.
I know. It is just the coolest thing ever. And Nicole Johnson, too, from Region 1 to Region 2.
Oh, I love Nicole. She's my buddy.
So we are so excited to sit there and say that your classroom counts too. Not just the students too. See, now I'm going to the teachers. You count too. And that's what this is all about. So
Yes,
Power Day. Woo!
Go Power Day. I'm so excited to see how year 2 goes. But I am excited to bring on our second guest. We have a second guest we want to bring onto the show, which is pretty special to you. And kind of a big deal around Shape America. He is current Shape America president, Joe Deutsch, Dr. Joe, and welcome, Joe. And he was Heather's not only student teacher, cooperating teacher, but then when she went on to do her master's, he was also in the higher ed department. And so they continued their mentorship through there. So I have this beautiful picture of you two, you youngins. Was this when you were a college student? So describe this picture for those of us that are listening on Spotify and Apple.
That was my last day of student teaching. So I had to get a picture with the big guy. So that's what it's all about right there. And that my last day of student teaching in Madison Elementary, wasn't it, Joe?
Yep.
There you go.
And I was a full-time elementary physical education teacher at this time, just like everybody else probably is right now that's listening. And Heather came to me. She was at a small university in Moorhead, Minnesota, just outside of Fargo. And so she came to me to be my student teacher, and it just worked out coincidentally that when she finished with me, that I also finished enough of my doctorate that I got hired at NDSU, and so we transitioned ironically over there together at the same time. Really,
that was awesome.
That was great.
What was that like for you, Joe, to like have her both as your student teacher and then all of a sudden like have her at the master's level too? Was that like mind blowing?
Well, it's a blessing, right? I mean, the best, honestly, the best, the best people to work with in our field are the people who, who are just full of energy, full of ideas, and relentless, right? Relentlessly pursuing. And when you run into a roadblock, instead of stopping and saying I ran into a roadblock, you maneuver your way around that roadblock, and you just keep pushing forward down the path, right? And you don't try to knock the roadblock down. That's too much work and too much energy. You find your way around it and get back on your path and get back to work. So,
she says.
And I was excited to hear you guys talking earlier about, about one of the things I learned from having Heather was, the whole idea of, some people think they're doing kids a service by saying, oh, don't worry about it. You're not responsible for doing the same things those other kids. I got you or whatever. So I always say, my quote was always, when in doubt, don't throw out, adapt. So
nice. Way to bring that. So Heather, go ahead. Were you going to continue?
No, I was just going to say, and so it was neat because I obviously got to have Heather, in elementary, which the kids absolutely loved her, right? Great. Loved her energy. All my students, she comes and presents in my class even still this to this day every year. She talks to my students before they go out and student teach, and they just absolutely love her perspective on life and her positive energy and all that good stuff. But it was nice to have to not just have her. In the gym with me, right? But it was also nice to have her in my transition into college, because I was nervous. I thought that these kids are going to figure out I don't know anything about anything. So it was fun to have her as a graduate assistant with us at the time, and to work on her curriculum that she had kind of got started when we were doing her undergrad on the playground. We just kind of did some playground safety, and then she kind of parlayed that into the whole curriculum. And then eventually, when she started getting heavily involved with Shape, she came back to me and said, "Hey, this SEL stuff, this is what we were already doing." So I got one of my doctoral students, and we put pen to paper and got it published in Burde. So that was pretty cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Burde's such a big deal. That's a big deal. Heather, what was it like to have Joe as your advisor?
Actually, you would be so surprised. He was so hard on me. He was just awful. Like, you got to make sure you got this. You got to make sure you got this down. And it was crazy because, oh my goodness, he was so tough on making sure that I had every single thing, cue, idea, thought written down word for word. It was so important because here's the deal. The world wasn't going to give me any favors. They weren't going to do me any good for people to feel sorry for me, because that's not what this is all about. And because of that, Heather, he kept saying, and it just resonated me for the rest of my life. You cannot be just proficient as an educator. You have to be exemplary. So are you going to step up?
Yeah,
or
I mean,
not?
you had an uphill battle. You could sit in classrooms and learn and take tests and whatever. But I said, if you're going to go out and teach physical education, the default that everybody falls to is demonstration, right? And that wasn't going to be an option for you. So the reality is there's a lot of other better ways to teach, right? With using other kids to demonstrate, and peer-to-peer, and all kinds of great things. Cues. Obviously, you had to learn cues for all of your skills, and you taught the kids the cues. And so
Yes.
you had an opportunity to first of all learn how to teach differently than other people.
Yes.
But you also were able to connect with kids in a different way than most other teachers they ever would have experienced would have, because you and part of your style then was teaching them really to teach themselves per se. And so
Yeah, pretty much.
And the best part of teaching somebody how to teach themselves is that they can then make modifications in other scenarios in life, right? They don't just memorize what you told them to do in a situation, and then when they have a similar situation and they don't know how to get through it, you say, how can you not figure out how to get through that? We just talked about talked about this. Oh, I guess I didn't think about that. And it's like, how do you not realize they're the same? Well, because you didn't teach them. And so you empowered them, and that's a big difference.
And you know what?
Especially adapted kids need to be empowered so that they can fight for themselves when they need to.
Oh, that's big time.
So incredible, because so I'm thinking back to just even like the reason I have this podcast, right? It's to help people who listen support all students, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part behind what you do, because your body is differently abled, gives you a different way to support all students. And it kind of just brings a different perception, different perspective into that. And like for me, like I can demonstrate, the skills for my kids. But you have had to kind of like reframe a lot. I mean, it's just the way that you work, right? But you have to reframe everything. That really blows my mind a little bit, because like my body doesn't work like yours, but yours has a special, we don't want to call it a superpower because that's just like, right. But like, it's just the way that you are, like, it's special. Like it's a cool way that you've had to reframe and just be kind of a different way, a different kind of connector with your students. And that is really cool. Right.
And people who don't know Heather and would see her present for the first time, if you pointed out to them the situation, they could obviously see it. But if you don't point it out to them, you may not notice it, because she's very, very good at doing what she does. She may not grab that thing with her right hand, but she can grab it with her left hand, put it in her right hand, grab something else with her left hand again. You wouldn't even notice that it happened that fast. And like you said, her whole story of her life, but it really goes back to her childhood of being treated. I don't want to say the expectations of her were the same as all her other siblings. There was just an empowerment to say, you're going to have to figure out how to do it differently than your siblings.
That's just the way it was.
Empowerment.
You can do anything you want in this world. You're just going to have to learn how to do it differently than others. That's all.
You are empowered in a way that most of us are not, Heather.
Thank you. Love that. I love that word. Power day. There you go.
There we go. So, Joe, now Heather has kind of had another step to her journey in this last year, and I'm just wondering, how has it been to not only like see her go through the elementary student teaching process, but then go back to her master's, and now she's a teacher of the year. Like, how does that make you feel, first of all, as a teacher, but then, or as her advisor, but also just like, are you so proud of her? Like, tell me about that.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, yes, I'm extremely proud of her. She's the current reigning, defending Central District middle school teacher of the year, but she's also a former Minnesota State high school physical education teacher of the year too. Mm-hmm. So the thing about Heather that's so inspiring is that look at her, she's is that she's doing it all. And when I say that, I mean, not only did I, so to speak, try to empower her in her student teaching, and she ran with it, but she also wanted to go back to her roots, and she wanted to give back to her community. And she's doing that through, the fire department and raising her family in a rural environment, which is important to her and her husband and whatever. But then she found a way to get herself out on the national scene too. And in that process, advocating for rural, specialists, rural physical education, rural health, because I'm in North Dakota, bordering on Minnesota, and we have the same struggles in our rural populations. We don't have an extreme value on our specials, especially physical education. A lot of our teachers are coaches too, and they don't there just isn't a strong emphasis in the school district to put on it. So by Heather running her Power Day and them sending it out to all the districts in the area around there and saying, send your teachers, that this is important, and nobody would be doing it there if Heather hadn't done it. And she had to sort of take a leap of faith. She had to volunteer to do 90% of it up front. And then it's amazing when you're willing to do anything and it's going to happen anyways, people come along for the ride and financially support you. But when you say, well, if you give me this money, I'd do this. Well, there's a lot of people that are sitting around with that same attitude. So it's funny how Heather finds a way to get all the support that she can, but it's too fun. It's too fun to watch her, and her energy and her attitude and her everything is just contagious. You can just look at her. Just look at her.
Just look at her smile. Absolutely. I want to bring us to the national conferences because is it true that you guys presented together recently?
Yes. We did 3 last year, which was too many. Yeah, because we're crazy. And we had 2 the year before. And I signed up because I'm doing 5 now with my toy stuff too. So so that I can make it fun, I guess. I know. Because I enjoy my life too much, I swear.
I know. Well, in Baltimore, I shared this in an earlier conference, but I did a lot this last one, and I'm going to have major FOMO when I can't go this Kansas City one. But for you guys, what was it like to kind of join forces at the national level? What was that? What did you present about? What did it feel like? Who was in the room? What kind of feedback did you guys get?
Well, I can start with that one because with the national conferences, what I loved about it is the fact that we got to show off a little bit about just what it's like to see the connections and how you have to be able to reach every student. So many teachers are not knowing what to do when you've got that kid that is standing in the corner and doesn't want to participate. And you need to be able to teach that one to that kid that, wants to hit the ball the hardest and the farthest because they're the most athletic, quote unquote. And I've always loved the fact that we've done all of our if you don't mind, Joe, that all of our things have been about assessing that to make sure that everything is very objective, not subjective, and it's evidence-based that follows the standards the national standards for physical education. And then we bring activities that go into that. What are your, again, back to the ladder system, what is your beginners doing? What are your middles doing? What are your advanced kids doing? And if you could do that, you're reaching all students. Again, advocating for all students. And that's what we have presented on for in the past. And I just keep making up new games to be able to reach your beginners, middles, and advanced. And they keep wanting me to teach more. So I like it a lot.
It's working. I love it. Joe, what was it like for you to join forces with Heather?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a lot of fun. You know, we also did another session of hers that I helped with and kind of tell the same story as that I'm kind of helping out here a little bit. It's called "Let's See What She Can Do," and the neat thing about Heather is that you know, the happy medium we want with adapted or physical education, I think, is to have the kids have similar attainable goals as their peers, only in relation to their abilities, right? And so we walk that fine line of you know, somebody saying, "Who are you to expect this from them?" or whatever. And so having Heather, I mean, Heather checks the boxes as the person who has every right to tell people that, you know, that students, you can expect students to strive for success and to be successful, right? But you have to set them up for success. You have to make adaptations to their circumstances. But then you also have to figure out, you know, what their stretch goals are. You have to figure out what's attainable for them. And it's okay. It's okay to push your kids a little bit if it's just as attainable for them as it is for the students with the traditional curriculum.
Yeah,
I could just
absolutely
jump off on that. Here's a perfect example of that. I had a kid the other day that we were doing the push-ups, and all my tests are, I call them able tests. And a kid went to me and said, "I'm able to do 10 wall push-ups today."
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, wall push-ups, just standing from the wall.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I just went absolutely ballistic because the kid had never tried more than 2, you know,
That's
type of thing.
awesome.
10, are you serious? You got to be kidding me, type of thing. And, you know, and then you get a kid that can do diamond push-ups, you know, that I did 10 of those. Whoa, you mean you did 10? You went way above your goal there? That's amazing. So it's when you're able to identify that even those most basic, all the way up to the top, it really makes a difference.
That's awesome. I think part of, like, obviously we have like the evaluations, we have the IEP goals, but sometimes just finding what goals for our kids is kind of tough. Like, until you know them. I know, like, for me, like incoming 6th graders, when I have to create goals for them, sometimes they're like my hardest ones, because I'm like, gosh, I got to get to know you a little bit. But then, like, you know, when they're in high school and I know what they're motivated by and what their future goals are, like, I know the kids so well, and I feel like I can write goals really well then. But like, I really have to spend time getting to know my kids when they first get to me, because I teach grades 6 through 12 adaptive PE. And so I really have to get to know, like, my kids that are new to me, and just find those goals for them. So absolutely. Hey, Heather, what was it like? And I'm going to ask Joe the same question. When you found out that you were what did it feel like? How did you respond to the notification that you were Central District Teacher of the Year for middle school PE this year?
I couldn't believe it. First, I told my husband, because I was just like, my gosh, you know, believe it or not, I wasn't even supposed to be a teacher. Do you know that when Concordia saw my application in order to get to be a teacher in the first place, there was a lot of people that said, let's not put her in there. And I had to have my basketball coach, my volleyball coach, their assistants, even my advisor, Bob Kohler, say, "Hey, let's just see what you can do." You would not believe what you could see out if you just give her a chance. They weren't even going to let me be a teacher in the first place.
Wow.
And now I get to say that I'm Central District teacher of the year. I mean, that's astronomical. I mean, I wasn't even that's hard for me because, like I said, I've gone from nobody letting me do what I love to do so much to being able to be like, oh, that's Heather. I went to my last conference. My boys, they were behind a bunch of undergrad kids, and they were saying, "Hey, have you heard of that Heather Burde?" And my boys were just like, "They're talking about you, Mom." And it was the most amazing thing in the world to me. And why I think it's so cool because I get to bring my boys there to these things. And they're like, you can do hard things and you can be successful. You know, you can jump over hurdles if you really want to jump. It's just a matter of how high. Yeah. And I think when I got a chance to do this and be synergistic, it was funny. Yep, I told my husband, I told my boys, and then I gave Bob Kohler and Joe Deutsch a call and say, this is my world. So thank you for everything that they've ever done for me. So that was what it was like for me.
Amazing, Heather. How about you, Joel? What was your response when she called you?
Was I surprised? Absolutely not. I think the biggest takeaway that we need to take away with Heather today, regardless of any of her detailed circumstances, is her absolute joy and persistence in spreading positivity and helping others. And what I mean, it's contagious, right? I mean, and so you know, if there's one thing you could take away this, you say, well, how did she get here? Like people want to be around people and want to work with people who don't focus on the negative and just say, okay, well, that didn't work. Well, what are we going to try next? Ha ha. And that's literally what Heather says. She's never felt sorry for herself one day of her life, I don't think. Nope. Or at least I've never been around when she has. And, you know, for somebody who says that people tried to keep her down when she was younger, well, she obviously kept plowing forward when she got to college. Because when I met her senior year, she was, like I said, the student basketball manager. She was running an Uber service long before Uber, 20 years before Uber existed, driving college kids to and from parties to make sure that nobody drove intoxicated. But I mean, there's just nobody else on earth that is as persistent and positive and awesome as Heather. So
Heather,
proud, of course, I'm proud, but not shocked in any way whatsoever. And I feel like this is just taking things to the next level as far as you know, her getting this national exposure now, right? Yeah. Because the platform gets that much bigger. Everybody who's ever worked with her since she was in college would honestly say to you, she's an inspiration. But it was just a one-on-one situation. And so this last year, she's gotten opportunities like you're giving her right now to tell her story on the national level. And I think that's what brings tears to her eyes is that she's getting an opportunity to try to spread her joy and positivity and energy, potentially at a world level. So definitely at the United States level.
So good.
And I'm just honored to be able to be along for the ride.
And don't you just feel like, oh man, I got to be like this much in her story and all those, but Heather, like all those people who are a part of your story, like they all added, like, it's just cool how people impact people, right? Like I talk to my students all the time. I teach unified PE as well. And I always have a question on their final, people impact people. Who is someone that impacted you? And so they get to share about that. And, and we take that with us to where we're going, right? Like sure that impacted me. And like, that's the way I teach is because of those people. Right. Yeah. So, but Heather, what kind of advice would you have for undergrad or new teachers as people are stepping into this world of teaching? What would you say to them? What kind of advice?
Number one, make sure you get everything: physical education, health education, and adaptive physical education, because that's the whole gamut of what we do. Make sure that your umbrella is as use as tools as possible. Number two, go to every conference that exists on the face of the earth. This will make you the most important, the most strong and most prepared teacher that you could ever imagine. When we go through undergrad, sometimes when we go to the professional world, it's really easy for you to forget to do that professional development. I cannot tell you how important it is to go to professional development that's relevant to physical and health education and find a way to get some advocacy or get people in your wheelhouse. I have quite a family now in Shape America that, I mean, honest to God, I love them as sisters and brothers. And it's just like the coolest thing in the world for them to, like, you just feel like you're taking care of each other and that you're making sure that everyone succeeds as an educator. So do yourself a favor, get involved, be part of Shape. You've got to be part of Shape, and you've got to be part of what I would say building your community. You need that community more than anything in this world in order for you to be not just proficient, not just proficient, not just halfway, but exemplary, because that's my world. And you know what? It can be yours too. I think that that's super important.
100%, Heather. I think that sometimes we've had this conversation where people look up to us and are like, you're amazing, you're inspiring. And you've told me, Jen, you're inspiring. And I've told you this over and over, because you say this to me over and over. You tell me, Jen, you're my hero. I'm like, Heather, you're the hero. Like, you are the hero in this story now. People are going to look to you and to your story and for the way that you're advocating, and like, you are the inspiration that's going to be the voice in their rural community. You know what I mean? Like, so like, keep doing what you're doing. It's so good. Joe, what advice would you have to your friends who teach higher ed? How can we support college students with disabilities to be the best teachers that they can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think Heather's a perfect example of the fact that, one thing we know about teaching, right, is that there's a million different ways to effectively to teach, and you just got to figure out the style that works best for you, and you got to, you got to work with other people. So I think it's fair to say that that anybody who is aspiring to do something is willing to go the extra mile to try to figure it out. So instead of being the judge who's going to decide whether or not we think they can, we just need to empower them and give them the resources to be successful. Because again, one thing we know with adapted, right, is there's no perfect story for a specific situation. Every single person with adapted needs something slightly different than every single other person. Therefore, you need to help them figure out what their, understand their limitations, and then to figure out how to best embrace those limitations and be successful in a different way. So
I think I should add to that, Joe, where you could say, instead of saying what their limitations are, you have to find their power. And you found that my power,
what they can do.
You found my power was not only in my talking, I know you're shocked there, but number two was the fact that I was able to motivate social skills in every activity that I ever taught. You saw that as my superpower. And so guess what? When you give your teacher, your students that power, that's everything.
The last thing I'll say about Heather is that, people with bad attitudes justify bad attitudes by they were victims of different circumstances or situations in life. So when Heather tells you that we need to have positive attitudes and go take on the world and we can do anything we want, nobody can argue with her, right? Because because she could have quit, she could have pouted, she could have been a victim a long time ago in life. And instead of being a victim, she just embraced what made her unique and what was her superpower, and she's ran with it. And now and it's certainly an inspiration to me. And I know she's an inspiration to most people that she talks to. But I'm super, super proud of her, super proud of, and it's just the beginning, right? It just really is the beginning. Every week she sends me another message or a text saying, "Hey, can you come do this thing with me? Somebody just asked me to do this, or I presented in Wisconsin and they're talking to me about coming out to New York." Like, how could they not want you to come and inspire people? You're awesome.
Awesome. I'm lucky.
Yeah, that is so true. So as we start to close, this is your one chance to put me on the hot seat. Ask the podcast host anything, right? I just, for anyone who's new, I started this podcast in April, and been podcasting since then. But I'm a Min Shape Adapted PE Teacher of the Year 2020 when the pandemic started, like, everything's falling apart, but I'm a teacher of the year. And then I was Central District Teacher of the Year for Adapted PE in 2022. And then that put me in for the national round. And then I was notified in front of 300, 400 peers that I was the National Teacher of the Year in 2022. So this is your chance to ask me anything. Does anybody have a question? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Oh my gosh. I think what's really powerful, Jen, is the fact that anytime that we have a question or we need an idea, that's where you come into play. And you're like, hey, I like this idea or I like that idea. I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but more of a comment to say, you know what, it's about figuring it out. And as long as you believe in building that community, which you do in this podcast in the first place, I think that's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've kind of found just even the last few years, man, we can't do this by ourselves. No. It's too hard. No. DAPE is an island at times, and
yes,
you can reach out to the people who understand and find those connections. Man, it helps so much. And I can do my job better when I have people helping me and I'm reaching for help and I have those trustworthy people. So 100%.
Well, and I'll say mine isn't necessarily a question either, but just a compliment and a thank you, because you know you can say, well, you're the National Physical or Adapted Teacher of the Year, and that's awesome and congratulations. But you also are an advocate, right, for Adapted. Yes. You're doing this podcast not as part of any job. You're not getting compensated for it. You're doing it for other adapted physical education teachers. You're doing it to connect with other people. You're awesome, and you're trying to inspire other awesome people and connect with other awesome people that already exist. And that's Heather too. And so that's going back to Heather's comment about you need to connect at Shape. I mean, the great thing about Shape America is if you're drawn to and potentially interested in looking at podcasts and stuff about your teaching, then that puts you in a special category of people who don't just want to come and do their job and go through the motions, but they actually want to be awesome for their kids. And therefore iron sharpens iron, right? Therefore, we are inspired and we are motivated by other people with the same passions and energy, and you just feed off each other, and it's awesome.
We do. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. And I think too, like, I'll get into takeaways, but like my overall thing with this is like our advocacy it's come out as a theme in this podcast over and over and over and over. And the way that we've had to advocate is maybe a little bit different than the next person. But then like when we know each other's stories, we can advocate together better. I always say, reach one hand forward, grab the hand and ask for help. Grab one person behind you who needs help. And like when you hold on to those hands and you can walk forward, you can make change together, right? We're just always reaching. So anyway, thank you so much. We are going to kind of start to wrap things up. I want each of us, we're going to go over an hour today because this has been so good. We're going to talk about this is what I want to happen. I was hoping that we would go over an hour today because it's been so good. We're going to talk about takeaways. So what is one thing that you have taken away from today's podcast? I will start. I think in this podcast, just the overarching theme that has come out to me is specifically for your story, Heather, is you are empowered in a way that no one else is. And it's such a good deal. Like to see things differently than I do. And then when we share, we get to help each other, right? So the empowerment, Joe, you talked about how she wasn't empowered. And I think the way that you grew up, Heather, with your grandparents, your parents, like they inspired you and empowered you and helped you be resilient. And that helped you have that perspective of being, of empowering and then motivating, because as a result, like that's how you turned out. Right. So my biggest takeaway today was definitely the word empowerment. Heather, what was your biggest takeaway today?
It sounds crazy because I've had to advocate for it too, but it was just a really great reminder that I count too. Yeah. That I am a Phi Ed teacher. I am an adaptive physical educator. I am a health educator. And I am not just good enough, but I am exemplary at what I do, because that's what I demand of myself. And I think that if anything, that I keep saying to myself as I advocate for my profession, I'm saying I am advocating for these kids, no matter if they're at the beginning or all the way to the most advanced, or they're adaptive all the way to the advanced. Everybody counts. And today I got reminded that I count too. And not only do I count, but I'm pretty darn good at it too. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Joe, what was your takeaway?
I'm gonna go different, just for the sake of, I agree with the things that you guys said, but my takeaway today is I get another opportunity to work with another awesome, positive, energetic person who just is trying to do good for our profession and inspire other people. And you, Jen, and I get to do it with Heather all the time, but as Shape America president, I get a lot more opportunities to
love it,
experience all you all, and it's just sometimes we got to be honest, our profession gets a bad rap, and they say, PE teachers are worried about coaching first and foremost, and they roll at the ball, and just stuff like that. Now we all know that's not the case with a lot of the teachers, and if we can band together as good quality teachers and keep connecting with other teachers and turning minds and helping people see that adapting curriculum is not that difficult to do. And so if you can do it, and they can experience that joy, the same sort of joy they feel when they see a kid successfully shoot a basket when they couldn't have done that previously. Well, then they can start to understand that that as a teacher, you have an opportunity to inspire a lot of things, but positivity, and just take, not feeling sorry for ourselves, and just trudging forward at all times. Proud of both of you, and anybody who's listening to this podcast, because if you're taking an hour out of your life to listen to Jen's podcast on adapted physical education, then you are a rock star too. So very, very privileged to be here today, and very privileged to be a part of all your lives.
Well, thank you. You guys are so awesome. So great. I want to take a minute to just thank all of our listeners, wherever you're listening today. Thank you for just taking an hour, just like Joe just said, and listening to Heather's story, listening to Joe's story, and how they've interwoven, and all of us have met up at all these conferences and sharing our conference stories, and just all the things that we shared today. Gosh, I might be done with this podcast and go grab some Kleenex, to be honest. It was just so good. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also want to thank our sponsors for the 25-26 podcast year, Fit and Fun Playscapes. Thank you, Pam Gunther, for all of your support in making this possible and allowing this podcast to go for an entire year. And then where to find us on social media. You can find us on X at Heartbeats of Adapted PE, on Blue Sky, Heartbeats of APE at bluesky.social. You can always email us at heartbeatsofadaptedpe@gmail.com. And you can watch live on YouTube, or rewatch, of course, on our YouTube page at Heartbeats of Adapted PE podcast. The Health and Physical Education Collective also carries our podcast, and Shape America carries our podcast on their YouTube page as well. So you can watch in those three places. And if you are kind of more of a listener kind of person, I know at least one person who would much rather listen to us on Spodcast or Apple, you can go ahead and download this show. I will be working on that probably before I go to bed tonight. So that'll be available hopefully tonight to you. And that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us, Heather and Joe. I just thank you guys so much for joining me today. And we might even have a second episode coming up this month. We'll see if I can make it happen, but otherwise we'll see you in January. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.